Chapter 101 Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, a CT2 of 1980, an Act to enact a new Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, to repeal the Guyana Independence Act 1966, the Guyana Independence Order 1966, and the existing Constitution, and to provide for matters incidental thereto or connected therewith. February 20, 1980, short title. 1. This Act may be cited as the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana Act. Interpretation. 2. 1. In this Act, appointed day means the 6th day of October 1980. The Constitution means the Constitution set out in the schedule. The existing Assembly means the National Assembly constituted under the existing Constitution. The existing Constitution means the Constitution in force immediately before the appointed day. Existing laws means all laws which had effect as part of the laws of Guyana immediately before the appointed day, and includes any act or other written law made before that day, and coming into force on or after that day. The existing Parliament means the Parliament which enacted this Act. Service Commission means the Public Service Commission, the Police Service Commission, the Judicial Service Commission, or the Teaching Service Commission in existence immediately before the appointed day, and, save where the context otherwise requires, expressions used in sections 1 to 22 inclusive have the same meaning as in the Constitution, and the provisions of Article 232 thereof shall apply for the purpose of interpreting those sections as they apply for the purpose of interpreting the Constitution. Constitutional instruments, including the existing Constitution, repealed. 2. References in Article 133 of the Constitution to any question as to the interpretation of the Constitution shall be construed as including references to any question as to the interpretation of any provision of this Act. 3. Subject to the provisions of this Act, on the appointed day all the provisions of the Guyana Independence Act 1966, the Guyana Independence Order 1966, insofar as they form part of the law of Guyana, and the existing Constitution are repealed, and thereupon the Constitution shall have effect as the supreme law of Guyana, in place of the existing Constitution. Appointed day. Procul. 2/1980. 4. The Constitution shall come into operation on the 6th day of October, 1980. 6 Cap 1 Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Expedient to enable the Constitution to function on and after the appointed day. Existing laws. August 23, 1990. 7. 1. Subject to the provisions of this Act, the existing laws shall continue in force on and after the appointed day, as if they had been made in pursuance of the Constitution, but shall be construed with such modifications, adaptations, qualifications, and exceptions as may be necessary to bring them into conformity with this Act. 2. The President may, by order made at any time within the period of 3 years next after the commencement of the Constitution, make such modifications to any existing law as may appear to him or her to be necessary or expedient for bringing that law into conformity with the provisions of this Act, or otherwise for giving effect or enabling effect to be given to those provisions. 3. Anything done under any existing law before its modification by or under this section which would, but for this subsection, cease by virtue of that modification to have effect, shall continue to have effect, as if done under that law as so modified. 4. Where any matter that falls to be prescribed or otherwise provided for under the Constitution by Parliament or by any other authority or person, is prescribed or provided for by or under any existing law, including any amendment to any such law made under this section, or is otherwise prescribed or provided for immediately before the appointed day, by or under the laws repealed by Section 3, that prescription or provision shall, on and after that day, have effect with such modifications, adaptations, qualifications, and exceptions as may be necessary to bring it into conformity with this Act, as if it had been made under the Constitution by Parliament, or, as the case may require, by the other authority or person. 5. All enactments passed or made by any Parliament or person or authority under or by virtue of the Guyana Independence Order 1966 and the existing Constitution, and not before the appointed day declared by a competent court to be void by reason of any inconsistency with any provision of the existing Constitution, and that are not repealed, lapsed, or spent, or that had not otherwise had their effect, shall be deemed to have been validly passed or made, and to have had full force and effect as part of the law of Guyana immediately before the appointed day, even if any such enactments were inconsistent with any provision of the existing Constitution. 6. Without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing provisions of this section, if a proclamation of emergency is in force under Article 16 of the existing Constitution immediately before the appointed day by virtue of a resolution of the existing Assembly, the proclamation shall on and after that day have effect as if it had been made under Article 150 of the Constitution, and without prejudice to its continuance in force for further periods by virtue of the provisions of paragraph 3c of the said Article 150, as if its continuance in force to the date referred to in that resolution had been approved by a resolution passed by the National Assembly under the provisions of paragraph 3c of the said Article 150, and if any person is on the appointed day detained or restricted in the manner referred to in Article 100, and 51 of the Constitution, the provisions of that article requiring his or her case to be reviewed by a tribunal established for the purpose of that article not later than 3 months from the commencement of the detention or restriction, shall, in relation to that person, have effect as if the detention or restriction had commenced on the appointed day. The provisions of this section shall be without prejudice to any powers conferred by any law upon any person or authority to make provision for any matter, including the making of modifications to any existing law. 8. In this section, modification includes amendment, adaptation, or other alteration authorized by subsection 1. 9. Repealed by Act No. 23 of 1990. 8. 1. Notwithstanding any difference between the composition of the existing Assembly and that of the National Assembly established by the Constitution, with effect from the appointed day and until the National Assembly sits for the first time after the first election held pursuant to the provisions of Article 62 of the Constitution, but subject to subsection 5, the existing Assembly shall be deemed to be the National Assembly established by the Constitution, referred to in this section in respect of that period as the Transitional National Assembly. 2. Without prejudice to the generality of subsection 1, the persons who immediately before the appointed day were members of the existing Assembly shall with effect from that day be members of the Transitional National Assembly, and all questions concerning membership and functioning of the Transitional National Assembly shall be regulated as nearly as may be practicable by the existing law applicable in the like case to the existing Assembly. 3. All matters pending before the existing Assembly immediately before the appointed day may be continued and completed by the Transitional National Assembly. 4. Unless and until the Transitional National Assembly otherwise resolves, any person who is a member of that Assembly by virtue of subsection 2 shall be deemed to have made and subscribed before the Assembly the oath referred to in Article 167 of the Constitution. 5. Unless sooner dissolved by the President pursuant to the provisions of Article 72 of the Constitution, the Parliament constituted by the President and the Transitional National Assembly shall stand dissolved on October 2006, 1980. 6. The first election of members of the National Assembly pursuant to the provisions of paragraphs 3 and 4 Article 60 of the Constitution shall be held on such day as the President may by proclamation appoint, being a day which he or she considers to be as early as practicable after the holding of the first election of members of the Regional Democratic Council, or of the National Congress of Local Democratic Organs, as the case may be. 7. All monies granted, voted, or appropriated by the existing Assembly in respect of the services of Guyana, for the current financial year, shall be deemed to have been granted, voted, or appropriated by the National Assembly, established by the Constitution and in accordance with the Constitution. Standing Orders. 9. The rules and orders of the existing Assembly as in force immediately before the appointed day shall, until it is otherwise provided for under Article 165 of the Constitution, be the rules of procedure of the National Assembly established under the Constitution, but shall be construed with such modifications, adaptations, qualifications, and exceptions as may be necessary to bring them into conformity with the Constitution. President. 10. 1. The person who immediately before the appointed day holds the office of Prime Minister under the existing Constitution shall, subject to the provisions of Article 97 of the Constitution, relating to the taking of an oath by the President, assume office as President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana that day, as if he or she had been elected thereto, in pursuance of the provisions of the Constitution, and shall, unless he or she sooner dies or resigns, or unless he or she ceases to hold office by virtue of Articles 93 and 94 of the Constitution, continue in office until the person elected President in the next following presidential election held for the purposes of Article 91 of the Constitution assumes office. 2. On the assumption of his or her office pursuant to subsection 1, the first President of Guyana shall cease to be a member of the National Assembly, and his or her seat shall thereby become vacant, and may be filled as nearly as practicable in accordance with the provisions of Article 70 of the existing Constitution. Prime Minister. 11. Until a Prime Minister is appointed under Article 101 of the Constitution, the person who immediately before the appointed day holds the office of Minister under the existing Constitution, which however styled, ranks next in seniority after the office of Prime Minister, and who is an elected member of the existing Assembly shall, on and after that day, hold the office of Prime Minister as if he or she had been appointed thereto under that article. Ministers, Attorney General, Parliamentary Secretaries, etc. 12. 1. Subject to the provisions of sections 10 and 11. The persons who immediately before the appointed day held office as Minister other than as Prime Minister, Attorney General, Parliamentary Secretary, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, or Minority Leader shall, on and after that day, hold the corresponding office established by the Constitution as if they had been appointed or elected thereto, as the case may be, in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. 2. Any person holding the office of Prime Minister or of Minister, by virtue of the provisions of Section 11 or of subsection 1 of this section respectively, who immediately before the appointed day was assigned responsibility under the existing Constitution for any business of the government. Cabinet. of Guyana, including the administration of any department of government, shall, on and after that day, be deemed to have been assigned responsibility therefore under Article 107 of the Constitution. 13. Subject to Paragraph 1 of Article 106 of the Constitution, every person who does not otherwise become a member of the cabinet established by the Constitution, but who immediately before the appointed day is a member of the cabinet under the existing Constitution, shall on and after that day be a member of the cabinet established by the Constitution, as if he or she had been appointed thereto under that paragraph. Supreme Court of Judicature. 14. 1. The Supreme Court of Judicature in existence immediately before the appointed day shall on and after that day be the Supreme Court of Judicature for the purposes of the Constitution as if it were established thereunder. Existing officers. 2. Any decision given before the appointed day by any court forming part of the Supreme Court of Judicature in existence immediately before that day shall, for the purpose of its enforcement or for the purpose of any appeal therefrom, have effect on and after that day, as if it were a decision of the corresponding court established by the Constitution. 15. 1. Subject to the provisions of this Act, every person who immediately before the appointed day holds or is acting in a public office, shall, on and after that day, hold or act in that office or the corresponding office, established by the Constitution, as the case may be, as if he or she had been appointed to do so in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Provided that any person who, under the laws repealed by Section 3 or any other existing law, would have been required to vacate his or her office at the expiration of any period shall vacate his or her or office at the expiration of that period. 2. Subsection 1 shall apply in relation to the offices of Chancellor, Chief Justice, Justice of Appeal, Puisne Judge, Ombudsman, Clerk, and Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly, and, subject to Section 17, to the offices of Chairman, Deputy Chairman, if any, and member of the Judicial Service Commission, the Public Service Commission, the Police Service Commission, the Teaching Service Commission, and the Elections Commission, as if those offices were public offices. Oaths. 16. Any person who holds or acts in any office on the appointed day by virtue of the provisions of Section 11, 12, or 15 shall be deemed to have taken any necessary oath under the Constitution or any other law. Provided that the President may, at any time on or after the appointed day, require any such person to take any oath required as aforesaid. 17. 1. Until the expiration of the period of 3 months next after the day on which the first election after the appointed day has been held pursuant to the provisions of Article 61 of the Constitution, or until dissolved by a proclamation issued by the President, whichever shall the sooner occur, the Service Commissions, and the Elections Commission, as constituted immediately before the appointed day shall on and after that day be deemed to be the corresponding commissions under the Constitution notwithstanding any difference in composition under the existing law and under the Constitution, and any appointments to vacancies in membership and other matters relating thereto, shall be made and regulated, as nearly as may be practicable in accordance with the existing law. 2. Any power of a service commission which, immediately before the appointed day is validly delegated to any person or authority shall to the extent that power could be delegated under the Constitution to such person or authority be deemed, on and after that day, to have been delegated to that person or authority in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Continuation of proceedings. 18. Where any proceedings are pending immediately before the appointed day, before any court, body or authority in respect of which a corresponding court, body or authority is established by or under the Constitution, those proceedings may on and after that day be continued and completed by or before such corresponding court, body or authority as if they had been commenced in or before such corresponding court, body or authority, provided that in the case of any proceedings before any court, tribunal, or the Ombudsman, including any disciplinary proceedings, where the hearing was partly completed immediately before the appointed day, in this section referred to as the original hearing, no person shall take part in the continued hearing, either as the sole or other member, as the case may be, of the corresponding court, body or authority established by or under the Constitution, unless he or she has also taken part in the original hearing, and where the original hearing cannot be so continued, the hearing shall be recommenced. Local democratic organs. 19. Any local government authority in existence immediately before the appointed day shall be deemed to be a local democratic organ for the purposes of the Constitution, as if it were constituted thereunder. Amendment of certain provisions of the Amerindian Lands 20. Notwithstanding anything contained in the Constitution, Sections 2 and 3 of the Amerindian Lands Commission Act as in force immediately before the appointed day may be amended by Parliament only in the same manner as the provisions specified in Article 164 2b. 14. Cap 1. 1 Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Commission of the Constitution, Electoral Districts and List of Electors. 21. 1. The polling districts and divisions constituted under any existing law in relation to elections of members of the existing Assembly shall be deemed to be the polling districts and divisions for the purposes of elections to be held under Article 62 of the Constitution subject to any amendments duly made thereto under such law. 2. The list of electors last prepared before the appointed day for the purposes of holding elections of members of the existing assembly shall, subject to any further revision in accordance with law, be deemed to be the list of electors prepared by the Elections Commission under Article 162 of the Constitution for the purposes of Article 62 thereof. Amendment of this Act. 22. 1. Parliament may amend Section 3 and this section in the same manner as it may alter any of the provisions specified in Article 164(2)(a) of the Constitution. 2. Parliament may amend any other provision of this Act, with the exception of the schedule thereto, in the same manner as it may alter any of the provisions specified in Article 164(2)(b) of the Constitution. 3. Article 164(3) of the Constitution shall apply for the purpose of construing references in this section to any provision of this Act, and to the alteration of any such provision as it applies for the purpose of construing references in the said Article 164 to any provision of the Constitution, and to the alteration of any such provision. Schedule. Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Preamble. Part 1 General Principles. Chapter 1 The State and the Constitution. Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6A, 7, 8. The state in transition to socialism, the territory, the capital, the flag, the coat of arms, the anthem, the pledge, duty to respect national symbols, supremacy of Constitution. Chapter 2 Principles and bases of the political, economic and social system. 9. Sovereignty belongs to the people. 10. Political parties. Article 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 38A, 38 billions, 38C, 38, 38D. Article 11 repealed by Act No. 10 of 2003. Local government. Objective of political system. Goal of economic development. Further goal of economic development. State to foster forms of development. Private enterprise. Land to the tiller. Personal property. Right of inheritance. Role of labor. The right and duty to work. Right to leisure. Right to medical attention and social care in case of old age and disability. Duty to improve environment. Right to housing. Right to education. Youth. Women's participation in public decision-making. Article 30 repealed by Act No. 10 of 2003. Protection of citizens resident abroad. Duty to prevent crime and protect public property. Duty to defend state. Abolition of discriminatory distinctions. National culture. Land and the environment. External relations. National cooperation for development of economy. Democratic state with healthy economy. The best interest of the child. Adoption in best interest of the child. Child's right to maintenance and accommodation. Formal education compulsory. Article 38F. 38 grams. 39. Vilification of religion. Public service to be free from political influence. Guiding principles and objectives. Chapter 3 Fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. 40. Fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. Chapter 4 Citizenship. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. Persons who continue to be citizens on commencement of Constitution. Persons entitled to be registered as citizens. Persons born in Guyana after commencement of Constitution. Persons born outside Guyana after commencement of Constitution. Marriage to citizen of Guyana. Deprivation of citizenship on acquisition of, or exercise of rights of another citizenship. Commonwealth citizens. Powers of Parliament. Interpretation. Chapter 5 Supreme organs of democratic power. 50. Supreme organs of democratic power. Article. Chapter 6 Parliament. Composition of Parliament. Establishment of Parliament. Composition of the National Assembly. Qualifications for election as members. Tenure of seats of members of the National Assembly. First meeting of the National Assembly. Speaker and Deputy Speaker. Clerk and Deputy Clerk. Unqualified person sitting or voting. Elections. 59. Qualifications and disqualifications for electors. 60. Electoral system. 61. Times for elections under Article 62. 62. Elections Commission. 63. Filling of casual vacancies. 64. Determination of questions asked to membership and elections. Powers and procedure of Parliament. 65. Legislative power. 66. Alteration of this Constitution. 67%. Attendance of the President in the National Assembly. 68. Regulation of procedure, etc. Summoning, prorogation and dissolution. 69. Sessions of Parliament. 70. Prorogation and dissolution of Parliament. Article. Chapter 7 Local democracy. Local democratic organs. 71. Local government. 72. Local government areas. 73. Election of members of regional councils. 73A. Lower tier of local government to be represented at the tier above. Duties of local democratic organs. 74. 75. Power to take decisions. 76. Power to raise revenue. 77. Regional development program to be integrated into the national development plans. 77A. Parliament to provide criteria for allocation of resources by local democratic organs. 78. Local governmental elections. 78A. Local Government Commission. 78 billions. Representativeness and accountability of local democratic organs to the electorate. 79 to 81. Article 79 to 81 repealed by Act No. 14 of 2000, 82 to 88. Chapter V8, Articles 82-88, repealed by Act No. 14 of 2000. Chapter 9, the President, 89, Establishment of Office of President, 90, Qualifications for Election, 91, Election of President, 92, Tenure of Office of President, Removal of President on grounds of incapacity, 94, Removal of President for violation of Constitution or gross misconduct, 95%, Vacancy in Office of President, 96%, Discharge of functions of President during absence, illness, etc. Article 97, Oath to be taken by President, 98, Remuneration, etc. of President. Chapter N. The Executive, 99, Executive Authority of Guyana, 100%, Establishment of Office of Prime Minister and other ministerial offices. The Prime Minister, Vice Presidents, Ministers, Ministerial appointments during dissolution, non-elected ministers to sit in Assembly, the Cabinet, allocation of portfolios, tenure of office of ministers, Minister's absence or illness, Leader of the Opposition, exercise of President's powers, Attorney General, Parliamentary Secretaries, oaths of ministers etc. Permanent Secretaries, Director of Public Prosecutions, Secretary to the Cabinet, Subcommittees of Cabinet, Standing Committees, Parliamentary Standing Committee for Constitutional Reform, Parliamentary Sectoral Committees, Standing Committee to address matters relating to appointment of members of commissions established under the Constitution. 119D. Parliamentary Oversight Committee on the Security Sector. Article, Constitution of Offices. Prerogative of Mercy. Ombudsman. Chapter She. The Judicature. The Supreme Court of Judicature. 122A. Independent Judiciary. 123. Establishment of Supreme Court of Judicature. 124. Constitution of Court of Appeal. 125. Constitution of High Court, Judges of the Supreme Court of Judicature. 126. Interpretation. 127. Appointment of Chancellor and Chief Justice. 128. Appointment of Justices of Appeal and Puisne Judges. 128A. Appointment of part-time judges. 129. Qualifications of judges. 130. Attendance of additional judge in Court of Appeal and High Court. 131. Tenure of office of judges. 132. Oaths of judges, appeals. 133. Appeals on constitutional fundamental rights. Questions and Article. Chapter 12. The Service Commissions, the Judicial Service Commission, the Public Service Commission, the Teaching Service Commission, the Police Service Commission. Part 2. Specific Rules. Title I. Protection of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms of the Individual. 138. Protection of Right to Life. 142. Protection from Deprivation of Property. 143. Protection against arbitrary search or entry. 144. Provisions to secure protection of law. 146. Protection of freedom of expression. 147. Protection of freedom of assembly, association and demonstration. Protection of freedom of movement, protection from discrimination on the grounds of race, etc. 149A. Right to work. 149 billions. Right to pension and gratuity. 149C. Right to participate in decision-making processes of the state. 149D. Equality of persons before the law. 149E. Equality of status. 149F. Equality for women. Laws of Guyana. Article 149 grams. Indigenous Peoples' Right. 149 hours. Right to free education. 149 I. Right to establish private schools. 149 J. The Environment. 150. Provisions for time or war or emergency. 151. Reference to tribunal in certain cases. 152. Saving of existing laws and disciplinary laws. 153. Enforcement of protective provisions. 154. Interpretation. Title I. A Protection of Human Rights. 154A. Human Rights of the Individual. Title II. Parliament. 155. Disqualifications for election as members. 156. Tenure of seats of members of the National Assembly. Speaker and Deputy Speaker. Clerk and Deputy Clerk. 160A. Political parties prohibited from causing ethnic division. 161. Elections Commission. 161A. Appointment of Staff of Elections Commission, Secretariat of the Commission. 161 billions. Role of political parties in the conduct of elections through the Elections Commission. 162. Functions of Elections Commission. 163. Determination of questions as to membership and elections. 164. Procedure for altering this Constitution. Article. Regulation of procedure. Presiding in the Assembly. Oaths of members. Voting. Quorum. Mode of legislation. Introduction of bills, etc. Privileges, etc. of members of Assembly. The National. Title III 173 to 176. Title III Articles 173 to 176, repealed by Act No. 14 of 2000. Title IV, the President. 177. Election of President. 178. Tenure of office of President. 179. Removal of President on grounds of incapacity. 180. Removal of President for violation of Constitution or gross misconduct. 181. Salary and allowances of President. 182. Immunities of President. Title V the Executive, Subtitle I Ministers, etc. 184. Leader of the Opposition. 185. Attorney General. 186. Parliamentary Secretaries. 187. Functions of Director of Public Prosecutions. Article. Prerogative of Mercy. Advisory Council on Prerogative of Mercy. Functions of Advisory Council. Subtitle II the Ombudsman. 191. Appointment, etc. of Ombudsman. 192. Matters subject to investigation by the Ombudsman. 194. Ombudsman's functions on concluding an investigation, and reports to the Assembly. 195. Power of Parliament to make supplementary provision, interpretation. Title VI the Judicature. 197. Tenure of office of judges. Title VI a Defense and Security. 197. A. Defense and Security. Title VII the Service Commissions. 198. Composition of Commission. 199. Appointment, etc. of judicial and legal officers. Article. The Public Service Commission. Composition of Commission. Appointment, etc. of public officers. Appeals to Public Service Commission. Appointment, etc. of Director of Prosecutions. Appointment, etc. of Auditor General. Appointments of Solicitor General and others. Appointments on transfer to certain offices. Public. The Teaching Service Commission. 207. Composition of Commission. 208. Vacation of office of appointed member of the Commission. 209. Appointment of teachers. The Police Service Commission. 210. Composition of Commission. 211. Appointment, etc. of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioners. The Ethnic Relations Commission. 212A. Ethnic Relations Commission. 212C. Ethnic Relations Commission Tribunal. 212D. Functions of the Ethnic Relations Commission. 212E. Reports. 212F. Rules. Article. The Rights Commissions for the promotion and enhancement of the fundamental rights and the rule of law. 212 grams. Rights Commissions. 212 hours. Appointments. 212I. Secretariat. 212J. General Functions. 212K. Rights Commissions Tribunal. 212 Albanian Lex. Appeals. 212 millions. Reports. The Human Rights Commission. 212N. Human Rights Commission. 212O. Functions of the Human Rights Commission. 212 pesos. Secretariat. The Women and Gender Equality Commission. 212 Guatemalan quetzals. Women and Gender Equality Commission. 212 rands. Functions of the Women and Gender Equality Commission. The Indigenous Peoples Commission. 212 seconds. Indigenous Peoples Commission. 212 trillions. Functions of Indigenous Peoples Commission. The Rights of the Child Commission. 212 U. Rights of the Child Commission. 212 volts. Functions of the Rights of the Child Commission. The Public Procurement Commission. 212 W. Public Procurement Commission. 28 Cap 1 Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Article. 212 times. Composition of the Public Procurement Commission. 212Y. Appointment. 212Z. Secretariat. 212 AA. Functions of the Public Procurement Commissions. 212 BB. Appeals. 212 CC. Reports. 212 DD. Requirement to provide information. 212 EE. Public Procurement Tribunal. Principles for the establishment of commissions. 212 FF. Principles for the establishment of commissions. Pensions. 213. Protection of pension rights. 215. Interpretation. Public Service Appellate Tribunal. 215A. Public Service Appellate Tribunal. Title 8 Finance. 216. Establishment of Consolidated Fund. 217. Withdrawals from Consolidated Fund or other public funds. 218. Authorization of expenditure from Consolidated Fund by appropriation. 219. Authorization of expenditure in advance of appropriation. 220. Contingencies Fund. Article. 222. Remuneration of holders of certain offices. 222. A. Overarching clause on financial autonomy. 223. Office and functions of Auditor General. Title 9 Miscellaneous. 224. Rules of Court. 225. Removal from office of certain persons. 226. Powers and procedure of commissions. 227. Disqualification for office of persons exciting racial hostility. Title 10 Interpretation, Appointments, Resignations, Vacation of office on attaining a prescribed age. Article 231 repealed by Act No. 17 of 2000. Interpretation, First Schedule, Form of Oath of Office. Second Schedule, the National Flag, the Coat of Arms, the National Anthem and the National Pledge. Third Schedule, Entities. Fourth Schedule, Conventions. Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Preamble, 6 of 2001. We, the Guyanese people, proud heirs of the indomitable will of our forebears, in a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation proclaim this Constitution in order to safeguard and build on the rich heritage, won through tireless struggle, bequeathed us by our forebears, affirm our sovereignty, our independence, and our indissolubility, forge a system of governance that promotes concerted effort and broad-based participation in national decision-making in order to develop a viable economy and a harmonious community based on democratic values, social justice, fundamental human rights, and the rule of law. Celebrate our cultural and racial diversity and strengthen our unity by eliminating any and every form of discrimination. Value the special place in our nation of the indigenous peoples and recognize their right as citizens to land and security and to their promulgation of policies for their communities. Acknowledge the aspirations of our young people who, in their own words, have declared that the future of Guyana belongs to its young people, who aspire to live in a safe society which respects their dignity, protects their rights, recognizes their potential, listens to their voices, provides opportunities, ensures a healthy environment, and encourages people of all races to live in harmony and peace, and affirm that their declaration will be binding on our institutions and be a part of the context of our basic law. Demonstrate our commitment to protect our natural environment and endowment. Create a Republican community practically aware that the finances, industry, communications, education, business, and technology of the world are global factors affecting all, in which all must engage, and from which all must benefit. As citizens of Guyana, we adopt these fundamental laws and make provision for their amendment to reflect changes in our society, inspired by our collective quest for a perfect nation, whose characteristics include the commitments, concepts, and other principles proclaimed in this preamble. May God protect our people. Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Part 1 General Principles. Chapter 1. The State and the Constitution. The State in Transition to Socialism. 1. Guyana is an indivisible, secular, democratic sovereign state in the course of transition from capitalism to socialism, and shall be known as the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. The territory that immediately before the commencement of this constitution were comprised in the area of Guyana together with such other areas as may be declared by Act of Parliament to form part of the territory of the state. The capital. 3. The capital of the state is the city of Georgetown. 4. The national flag of the state is the flag known as the Golden Arrowhead, as set out in the second schedule. The flag. 6 of 2001, second schedule, the coat of arms. 6 of 2001. 5. The coat of arms of the state is that in use at the commencement of this constitution as set out in the second schedule. The anthem. 6 of 2001. 6. The national anthem of the state is the anthem known as Green Land of Guyana, as set out in the second schedule. The pledge. 6 of 2001. Duty to respect national symbols. 6 of 2001. 6a. The national pledge of the state is the pledge as set out in the second schedule. 7. It is the duty of every citizen of Guyana wherever he or she may be, and of every person in Guyana to respect the national flag, the coat of arms, the national anthem, the national pledge, and the Constitution of Guyana, and to treat them with due and proper solemnity on all occasions. 8. This Constitution is the supreme law of Guyana, and, if any other law is inconsistent with it, that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. Chapter 2. Principles and Bases of the Political, Economic, and Social System. Sovereignty belongs to the people. 9. Sovereignty belongs to the people, who exercise it through their representatives and the democratic organs established by or under this Constitution. 10. The right to form political parties and their freedom of action are guaranteed. Political parties must respect the principles of national sovereignty and of democracy. 11. Article 11 repealed by Act No. 10 of 2003. 12. Local government by freely elected representatives of the people is an integral part of the democratic organization of the state. Objective of political system. 6 of 2001. 13. The principal objective of the political system of the state is to establish an inclusionary democracy by providing increasing opportunities for the participation of citizens and their organizations in the management and decision-making processes of the state, with particular emphasis on those areas of decision-making that directly affect their well-being. Goals of economic development. 6 of 2001. 14. The goal of economic development includes the objective of creating, promoting, and encouraging an economic system capable of achieving and maintaining sustainable competitive advantage in the context of a global competitive environment. By fostering entrepreneurship, individual and group initiative and creativity, and strategic alliances with domestic and global business partners in the private sector. 15. The goal of economic development includes, of economic development, 6 of 2001, objective of laying the material basis for the greatest possible satisfaction of the people's growing material, cultural and intellectual requirements, as well as the dynamically stable development of their personality, creativity, entrepreneurial skills, and cooperative relations in a plural society. The state shall intervene to mitigate any deleterious effects of competition on individuals or groups of individuals. State to foster forms of development. 6 of 2001, private enterprise. 6 of 2001. 16. The state shall foster the development of such relevant forms of cooperation and of business entities as are seen to be supportive of the goals of economic development, as stated in Articles 14 and 15. 17. Privately owned economic enterprises are recognized and shall be facilitated in accord with their conformity with the aims and objectives stated or implied in Articles 13, 14, 15, and 16. 19. Every citizen has the right to own personal property, which includes such assets as dwelling houses and the land on which they stand, farmsteads, tools and equipment, motor vehicles and bank accounts. 20. The right of inheritance is guaranteed. 21. The source of the growth of social wealth and of the well-being of the people and of each individual is the labor of the people. 22. 1. Every citizen has the right to be rewarded according to the nature, quality and quantity of his or her work, to equal pay for equal work or work of equal value, and to just conditions of work. 2. Every citizen who is able to work has a duty to work. Right to leisure. 23. Every citizen has the right to rest, recreation and leisure. The state, in cooperation with cooperatives, trade unions and other socio-economic organizations, will guarantee this right by prescribing hours and conditions of work, and by establishing holiday arrangements for workers, including a complex of cultural, educational, and health institutions. Right to medical attention and social care in case of old age and disability. 24. Every citizen has the right to free medical attention, and also to social care in case of old age and disability. Duty to improve environment. 25. Every citizen has a duty to participate in activities designed to improve the environment and protect the health of the nation. Right to housing. 26. Every citizen has the right to proper housing accommodation. Right to education. 10 of 2003. 27. 1. Every citizen has the right to free education from nursery to university, as well as at non-formal places where opportunities are provided for education and training. 2. It is the duty of the state to provide education that would include curricula designed to reflect the cultural diversities of Guyana and disciplines that are necessary to prepare students to deal with social issues and to meet the challenges of the modern technological age. 28. Every young person has the right to ideological women's participation in public decision-making. 10 of 2003. Protection of citizens resident abroad. Duty to prevent crime and to protect public property, social, cultural, and vocational development, and to the opportunity for responsible participation in the development of the socialist order of society. 29. Women's participation in the various management and decision-making processes, whether private, public, or state, shall be encouraged and facilitated by laws enacted for that purpose or otherwise. 30. Article 30 repealed by Act No. 10 of 2003. 31. It is the duty of the state to protect the just rights and interests of citizens resident abroad. 32. It is the joint duty of the state, the society and every citizen to combat and prevent crime and other violations of the law, and to take care of and protect public property. 33. It is the duty of every citizen to defend the state. 34. It is the duty of the state to enhance the cohesiveness of the society by eliminating discriminatory distinctions between classes, between town and country, and between mental and physical labor. 35. The state honors and respects the diverse cultural strains which enrich the society and will seek constantly to promote national appreciation of them at all levels and to develop out of them a socialist national culture for Guyana. 36. The well-being of the nation depends upon preserving clean air, fertile soils, pure water, and the rich diversity of plants, animals, and ecosystems. 37. The state supports the legitimate aspirations of other peoples for freedom and independence, and will establish relations with all states on the basis of sovereign equality, mutual respect, inviolability of frontiers, territorial integrity of states, peaceful settlement of disputes, non-intervention in internal affairs, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, and cooperation among states. National cooperation for development of economy. 38. It is the duty of the state, cooperatives, trade unions, other socio-economic organizations, and the people through sustained and disciplined endeavors to achieve the highest possible levels of production, and to develop the economy in order to ensure the realization of the right set out in this chapter. Democratic state with a healthy economy. 10 of 2003. 38. A. To ensure that Guyana is a democratic state with a healthy economy, the state shall a. Facilitate the engagement of citizens in activities designed to achieve their sustainable livelihoods. B. Progressively remove the barriers that prohibit or limit the realization of the potential for self-sustaining activities in such fields as agriculture, processing, manufacturing, and artistic and information-based activities. C. Encourage and support the self-mobilization of citizens, and D. Provide appropriate support to any group which is or is claiming to be under threat of marginalization. The best interest of the child, 10 of 2003, 38 billions. The best interest of the child shall be the primary consideration in all judicial proceedings and decisions, and in all matters concerning children, whether undertaken by public or private social welfare institutions, administrative authorities, or legislative bodies. Adoption in best interest of the child. 10 of 2003, 38c. The state shall ensure that the adoption of a child takes place only if that adoption would be in the best interest of the child. Child's right to maintenance and accommodation. 10 of 2003, 38d. Every child has the right to maintenance and accommodation from his or her parents and guardians. Formal education compulsory. 10 of 2003, 38e. Formal education is compulsory up to the age of 15 years. Vilification of religion. 10 of 2003, 38f. No person's religion or religious belief shall be vilified. Public service to be free from political influence. 10 of 2003, 38 grams. 1. The integrity of the public service is guaranteed. No public officer shall be required to execute or condone irregular acts on the basis of higher orders. 2. The freedom of every public officer to perform his or her duties and fulfill his or her responsibilities is protected. 3. No public officer shall be the subject of sanctions of any kind without due process. 4. In the discharge of his or her duties, a public officer shall execute the lawful policies of the government. Guiding principles and objectives. 10 of 2003, 39. 1. It is the duty of Parliament, the government, the courts, and all other public agencies to be guided in the discharge of their functions by the principles set out in this chapter, and Parliament may provide for any of those principles to be enforceable in any court or tribunal. 2. In the interpretation of the fundamental rights provisions in this Constitution, a court shall pay due regard to international law, international conventions, covenants, and charters bearing on human rights. Chapter 3. Fundamental Rights and Freedoms of the Individual. Fundamental Rights and Freedoms of the Individual. 10 of 2003, 40. 1. Every person in Guyana is entitled to the basic right to a happy, creative, and productive life, free from hunger, ignorance, and want. That right includes the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. 2. The provisions of Title I of Part 2 shall have effect for the purpose of affording protection to the aforesaid fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, subject to such limitations of that protection as are contained in those provisions, being limitations designed to ensure that the enjoyment of the said rights and freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and freedoms of others or the public interest. Chapter 4. Citizenship. Persons who continue to be citizens on commencement of Constitution. 41. Every person who immediately before the commencement of this Constitution is a citizen of Guyana shall continue to be a citizen of Guyana. Persons entitled to be registered as citizens. 42. 1. Every person who immediately before the commencement of this Constitution is or has been married to a person, A, who continues to be a citizen of Guyana by virtue of the preceding article, or B, who, having died before the commencement of this Constitution would, but for his or her death, have continued to be a citizen of Guyana on that date by virtue of that article, shall, if not otherwise a citizen, be entitled, upon making application, and upon taking the oath of allegiance, to be registered as a citizen of Guyana, provided that the right to be registered as a citizen under this paragraph shall be subject to such exceptions or qualifications as may be prescribed in the interests of national security or public policy. 2. Any application for registration under this article shall be made in such manner as may be prescribed. Persons born in Guyana after commencement of Constitution. 43. Every person born in Guyana after the commencement of this Constitution shall become a citizen of Guyana at the date of his or her birth, provided that a person shall not become a citizen of Guyana by virtue of this article if at the time of his or her birth, A, his or her father or his or her mother possesses such immunity from suit and legal process as is accorded to an envoy of a foreign sovereign power accredited to Guyana, and neither of them is a citizen of Guyana, or B, his or her father or his or her mother is an enemy alien, and the birth occurs in a place then under occupation by the enemy. Persons born outside Guyana after commencement of Constitution. 44. A person born outside Guyana after the commencement of this Constitution shall become a citizen of Guyana at the date of his or her birth if at that date his or her father or his or her mother is a citizen of Guyana, otherwise than by virtue of this article. Marriage to citizen of Guyana. 45. Any person who, after the commencement of this Constitution, marries a person who is or becomes a citizen of Guyana, shall be entitled, upon making application in such manner, and taking such oath of allegiance as may be prescribed, to be registered as a citizen of Guyana, provided that the right to be registered as a citizen of Guyana under this article shall be subject to such exceptions or qualifications as may be prescribed in the interests of national security or public policy. Deprivation of citizenship on acquisition of, or exercise of right of, another citizenship. 46. 1. If the President of Guyana is satisfied that any citizen of Guyana has any time after May 25, 1966, acquired by registration, naturalization, or any other voluntary informal act, other than marriage, the citizenship of any country other than Guyana, the President may by order deprive that person of his or her citizenship. 2. If the President is satisfied that any citizen of Guyana has at any time after May 25, 1966, voluntarily claimed and exercised in a country other than Guyana any rights available to him or her under the law of that country, being rights accorded exclusively to its citizens, the President may by order deprive that person of his or her citizenship. Commonwealth citizens. 47. 1. Every person who under this Constitution or any Act of Parliament is a citizen of Guyana or under any enactment for the time being in force in any country to which this article applies as a citizen of that country shall, by virtue of that citizenship, have the status of a Commonwealth citizen. 2. Every person who is a British subject without citizenship under the British Nationality Act 1948, continues to be a British subject under Section 2 of that Act or is a British subject under the British Nationality Act 1965, shall, by virtue of that status, have the status of a Commonwealth citizen. 3. The countries to which this article applies are Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, the Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belize, Botswana, Brunei, Canada, Cyprus, Dominica, Fiji, the Gambia, Ghana, Grenada, India, Jamaica, Kenya, Kiribati, Lesotho, Malawi, Malaysia, Maldives, Malta, Mauritius, Nauru, New Zealand, and island territories, and self-governing countries in free association with New Zealand, Nigeria, Papua New Guinea, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Singapore, Solomon Islands, Sri Lanka, St. Christopher and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Swaziland, Tanzania, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Tuvalu, Uganda, United Kingdom and Colonies, Vanuatu, Western Samoa, Zambia and Zimbabwe. 4. The President may from time to time by order subject to affirmative resolution of the National Assembly amend paragraph 3 by adding any country thereto, or by deleting any country therefrom. Powers of Parliament. 48. 1. Parliament may make provision, a. for the acquisition of citizenship of Guyana by persons who do not become citizens of Guyana by virtue of the provisions of this chapter. b. For depriving of his or her citizenship of Guyana any person who is a citizen of Guyana otherwise than by virtue of Article 41. Insofar as it relates to persons who became citizens of Guyana by virtue of Articles 21, 23, and 24 of the Constitution of Guyana annexed to the Guyana Independence Order 1966, 43 or 44, or c. for the renunciation by any person of his or her citizenship of Guyana. Interpretation. 49. 1. In this chapter prescribed means prescribed by or under any Act of Parliament. 2. For the purposes of this chapter, a person born aboard a registered ship or aircraft or aboard an unregistered ship or aircraft of the government of any country shall be deemed to have been born in the place in which the ship or aircraft was registered or as the case may be in that country. Any reference in this chapter to the national status of the father or mother of a person at the time of that person's birth shall, in relation to a person born after the death of either parent, be construed as a reference to the national status of the deceased parent at the time of that parent's death, and where that death occurred before the date of commencement of this Constitution, and the birth occurred on or after that date, the national status which that parent would have had if he or she had died on that date, shall be deemed to be his or her national status at the time of death. Chapter 5. Supreme Organs of Democratic Power. Supreme Organs of Democratic Power. August 14, 2000, 50. The supreme organs of democratic power in Guyana shall be I. The Parliament, T. The President, and Cabinet. Chapter 6. Parliament. Composition of Parliament. Establishment of Parliament. 51. There shall be a Parliament of Guyana, which shall consist of the President and the National Assembly. Composition of the National Assembly. 4 of 2001, 52. 1. Subject to paragraph 2, and to articles 105, 185, and 186, the National Assembly shall consist of such number of members as shall be determined by the Assembly, who shall be elected in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution and, subject thereto, in accordance with any law made by Parliament in that behalf. 2. If any person who is not a member of the National Assembly is elected to be Speaker of the National Assembly, he or she shall, by virtue of holding the office of Speaker, be a member of the Assembly in addition to the members aforesaid. Qualifications for election as members. 53. Subject to Article 155, which relates to allegiance, insanity, and other matters, a person shall be qualified for election as a member of the National Assembly, if and shall not be so qualified unless he or she a. is a citizen of Guyana of the age of 18 years or upwards, and b. is able to speak and, unless incapacitated by blindness or other physical cause, to read the English language with a degree of proficiency sufficient to enable him or her to take an active part in the proceedings of the Assembly. Tenure of seats of members of the National Assembly. 54. Members of the National Assembly shall vacate their seats in the Assembly in the circumstances set out in Article 156. First meeting of the National. 55. Whenever elections have been held pursuant to the provisions of Article 61, the National Assembly shall hold its first meeting at the time appointed under Article 69(1), and any reference in this Constitution to the National Assembly meeting for the first time after any election shall be read and construed as a reference to such first meeting. Speaker and Deputy Speaker, 56. 1. When the National Assembly first meets after any election, and before it proceeds to the despatch of any other business, it shall elect a person to be the Speaker of the Assembly, and if the office of Speaker falls vacant at any time before the next dissolution of Parliament, the Assembly shall, as soon as practicable, elect another person to that office. 2. The Speaker may be elected either from among the members of the Assembly who are not ministers or parliamentary secretaries, or from among persons who are not members of the Assembly but are qualified for election as members. 3. When the National Assembly first meets after any election and before it proceeds to the despatch of any other business except the election of the Speaker, the Assembly shall elect a member of the Assembly who is not a minister or a parliamentary secretary to be Deputy Speaker of the Assembly, and if the office of Deputy Speaker falls vacant at any time before the next dissolution of Parliament, the Assembly shall, as soon as convenient, elect another such member to that office. 4. A person shall vacate the office of Speaker or Deputy Speaker if required to do so by Article 157, which relates to loss of qualification for election as a member of the National Assembly and other matters. Clerk and Deputy Clerk, 57. 1. There shall be a clerk and a deputy clerk of the National Assembly, and appointments to those offices shall be made by the President acting in accordance with the advice of the Speaker. 2. The tenure of office and terms of service of the clerk and deputy clerk and other matters relating thereto shall be regulated by Article 158. Unqualified persons sitting or voting. 58. 1. Any person who sits or votes in the National Assembly, knowing or having reasonable ground for knowing that he or she is not entitled to do so, shall be liable to a penalty of $50 for each day upon which he or she so sits or votes. 2. Any such penalty shall be recoverable by civil action in the High Court at the suit of the Attorney General. Elections, qualifications and disqualifications for electors. 59. Subject to the provisions of Article 159, every person may vote at an election if he or she is of the age 18 years or upwards, and is either a citizen of Guyana or a Commonwealth citizen domiciled and resident in Guyana. Electoral system. August 14, 2000, 60. 1. Election of members of the National Assembly shall be by secret ballot. 2. Subject to the provisions of Article 162, such number of members of the National Assembly as determined by the Assembly shall be elected in accordance with the system of proportional representation prescribed by Article 161. Time for elections under Article 62, 61. An election of members of the National Assembly under Article 62 shall be held on such day within 3 months after every dissolution of Parliament, as the President shall appoint by proclamation, provided that no balloting commenced during the period of 3 months aforesaid, performed before the day so appointed, and pursuant to which the votes of any person registered as electors are cast at the election, shall be deemed contrary to the requirements of this article by reason only that such balloting has been so performed. Elections Commission, 62. Elections shall be independently supervised by the Election Commission in accordance with the provisions of Article 162. Filling of casual vacancies. 63. Parliament may make provision for the filling of casual vacancies among the seats of members of the National Assembly, and for other matters relating to election of members of the Assembly, in accordance with the provisions of paragraphs 2 and 3 of Article 160. Determination of questions as to membership and elections. 64. All questions as to membership of the National Assembly shall be determined by the High Court in accordance with the provisions of Article 163. Legislative Power. 1 of 1988. Powers and Procedure of Parliament. 65. 1. Subject to the provisions of this Constitution, Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Guyana. 2. The validity of any law made under this Constitution with effect from a date earlier than the day on which this Constitution commenced shall not be called in question in any court or tribunal on the ground that it contravenes, or is inconsistent with, any provision of any constitution which was in force in Guyana at any time before the day on which this Constitution commenced. Alteration of this Constitution. 66. Subject to the special procedure set out in Article 164, Parliament may alter this Constitution. Attendance of the President in the National Assembly. 67. 1. The President may at any time attend and address the National Assembly, sessions of Parliament, summoning, prorogation and dissolution. 69. 1. Each session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Guyana, and shall begin at such time, not being later than 6 months from the end of the preceding session, if Parliament has been prorogued, or 4 months from the end of that session, if Parliament has been dissolved, as the President shall appoint by proclamation. Prorogation and dissolution of Parliament. 2. Subject to the provisions of the preceding paragraph, the sittings of the National Assembly shall be held at such time and place as the Assembly may, by its rules of procedure or otherwise, determine. 70. 1. The President may at any time by proclamation prorogue Parliament. 2. The President may at any time by proclamation dissolve Parliament. 3. Parliament, unless sooner dissolved, shall continue for 5 years from the date when the Assembly first meets after any dissolution, and shall then stand dissolved. 4. During any time when the President considers that Guyana is at war, Parliament may from time to time extend the period of 5 years specified in the preceding paragraph by not more than 12 months at a time, provided that the life of Parliament shall not be extended under this paragraph by more than 5 years. 5. If after a dissolution and before the holding of an election of members of the Assembly, pursuant to the provisions of Article 61, the President considers that owing to the existence of a state of war or of a state of emergency in Guyana, or any part thereof, it is necessary to recall Parliament, the President shall summon the Parliament that has been dissolved to meet, but the election of members of the Assembly shall proceed, and the Parliament that has been recalled shall, if not sooner dissolved, again stand dissolved on the day before the day on which the election is held. Chapter 7 Local Democracy, Local Democratic Organs. Local Government. 4 of 2001, 71. 1. Local government is a vital aspect of democracy, and shall be organized so as to involve as many people as possible in the task of managing and developing the communities in which they live. 2. For this purpose, Parliament shall provide for the institution of a countrywide system of local government, through the establishment of organs of local democratic power, as an integral part of the political, local government areas. 4 of 2001. Organization of the State, 72. 1. Parliament may provide for the division of Guyana, save for any areas excluded by it, into 10 regions, and into such subregions and other subdivisions, as it may deem fit for the purpose of organizing local democratic organs. 2. In defining the boundaries of any areas into which Guyana may be divided under paragraph 1, account shall be taken of the population, the physical size, the geographical characteristics, the economic resources and the existing and planned infrastructure of each area, as well as the possibilities of facilitating the most rational management and use of such resources and infrastructure, with a view to ensuring that the area is or has the potential for becoming economically viable. Election of members of regional councils. 3. Municipalities, neighborhood democratic councils and such other subdivisions shall be provided for under paragraph 1, including village and community councils. Where there is the need for such councils, and where the people request their establishment, shall be vital organs of local democratic power. 73. 1. Members of a regional democratic council shall be elected by persons residing in the region and registered as electors, for the purpose of Article 159, provided that Parliament may make provision for any areas which do not form part of any region to be represented on the regional democratic council of any region near to which it is situate, for such purposes as Parliament may prescribe. 2. Elections of members of regional democratic councils shall be held, and the councils shall be dissolved at such times as, subject to paragraph 3, the President may appoint by proclamation. 3. The interval between any two successive dissolutions of a regional democratic council shall not exceed 5 years and 4 months, provided that, if at the expiration of that period the duration of Parliament has been extended under Article 74, that period shall not be deemed to come to an end until the expiration of the period for which the duration of Parliament has been extended. Lower tier of local government to be represented at the tier above. 4 of 2001, 73a. Each local democratic organ shall elect one of its councillors to serve as a member of the local democratic organ, immediately above the first mentioned local democratic organ, and Parliament shall prescribe the procedure for such election and such other matters as may be necessary in connection therewith. Duties of local democratic organs. 4 of 2001, 74. 1. It shall be the primary duty of local democratic organs to ensure in accordance with law the efficient management and development of their areas, and to provide leadership by example. 2. Local democratic organs shall organize popular cooperation in respect of the political, economic, cultural, and social life of their areas, and shall cooperate with the social organizations of the working people. 3. It shall be the duty of local democratic organs to maintain and protect public property, improve working and living conditions, promote the social and cultural life of the people, raise the level of civic consciousness, preserve law and order, consolidate the rule of law and safeguard the rights of citizens. Power to take decisions. 75. Parliament shall provide that local democratic organs shall be autonomous and take decisions which are